Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast made for Latinas by Latinas, with Angelica Cázares, Carolina Arenas, Diana Ruby, Jacqueline Villagomez, and Sonia Ramirez. Get comfortable, amiga, and enjoy the conversations.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Latina Leadership Podcast. Today, we are co-hosts, and my name is Carolina Arenas, and I'm here with
Sonia Ramirez, and we're at Kismet Boutique in the East End. And today we're interviewing Katherine González from Café Cultura 210. Is that right, Katherine?
Yes.
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have our cafecito in hand.
Look, our little cafecito here, your bag. How do you say?
Yay!
I don't want to butcher the name of this, the brand that I bought. What? How do you say
so
the brand?
That one is Huehuetenango.
There you go.
Oh.
Say that 3 times.
Yeah, say that 3 times really fast.
Yeah. So Katherine González is actually a founder of Café Cultura 210, and she started the business out of her love for coffee. So if you want to tell us a little bit about your business.
So yeah, Café Cultura was started out of a love for coffee. Coffee is really cultural for my family as well. I grew up drinking it with our families. So as I've gotten older, when I was in college, I thought it'd be really cool one day, right, to have a coffee shop. But it was just kind of like a passing thought, like someday, right? Maybe. And in 2020, during the pandemic, 2021, my husband got me a little roaster that I could roast from at home. My background is in biology, and I've always had an interest in STEM. But I was actually working for a small business in marketing because I also wanted to get some business experience. And I was like, it'd be really cool to learn like the whole roasting process, right? Like how do you get to coffee, like what coffee is? So he bought me that little roaster, and it's just kind of been a whirlwind from there. I met my mentor, who's a Colombian roaster. She taught me how to do what's called air roasting or fluid bed roasting. And then in 2022, she gave me the opportunity to purchase her roaster. So it's been a really fast-paced growth and change. I have a coffee trailer now that I launched at the beginning of the year. And I enjoy making coffee beverages, but coffee roasting is definitely where it's at for me. It's my favorite part of the process.
So it's amazing to hear that your background in school actually helped you, right, start the journey. So my question to you is, when did that shift happen? Like, when did you realize, let's start coffee?
Man, it kind of happened over time, if you will, and it wasn't really anything I did, because I've always been very not introverted, but
biology though.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So my bachelor's degree is in biology. I did a concentration in neurobiology.
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked STEM. I've always been interested in STEM. What really kind of got me into the coffee roasting was like trying to learn the process of it, right? The science behind it, if you will. Not really knowing that there actually is a lot of chemistry that goes into it, kind of like food chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning a lot of that stuff, but it's been really interesting, and it kind of helps me tie the business background that I kind of took over, that took over after I graduated, doing marketing, and then also being able to roast coffee. And hopefully, as I continue to learn and grow and come up with new recipes, new types of coffees, things like that, it'll allow me to learn more about that chemistry and that more science background of it. So that's what really interests me about it.
And how did cafecito look in your family? Because you said it was part of your family, right? Or your culture?
Yes. So it's cultural, as in like we would have it every day. I mean, if it was a family gathering, and you can ask my husband because he's Mexican, but he didn't really see it as much. But for us, it's like you have a birthday party, you have the coffee brewer right next to the cake, because it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but how are you going to have cake without coffee, right? um and it, if you go over to someone's house, it's kind of like offering them water or offering them a beverage. You automatically offer them some coffee. Even now that I live, I have my own home. Whenever I go visit my parents, the first thing is, nos vamos a tomar un café. Tomémonos un café, pues. And like, or the first thing I do when I come in is, me voy a hacer un café. And so it's really like culturally ingrained. And even going back to my childhood and the years that we would spend our summers in Guatemala, during the rainy season, which is our summers, my grandma, my mom, my tias, we would sit out in their like back porch on the hammocks, and we'd have a cup of coffee. And it was like, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but it's just, it's like a familiar thing, if you will. And even in, traveling to Guatemala, it's very culturally ingrained, because coffee is such an important economic aspect of the country, in terms of it's one of their highest or biggest exports year over year, along with bananas and cardamom. So it makes sense that it's something that's you have all the time.
Yeah. And Sonia got me for my birthday some cafecitos.
Oh, so good. I wanted to talk a little bit more about your coffee.
Sure.
Because this brand right here has like notes of brown sugar and chocolate, and it just is like a comforting cup of
smells
home.
amazing.
And it smells amazing. But I wanted to know if you could talk to me a little bit more about your process. I read that you harvest and import your beans from Guatemala. So can you talk to me a little bit about how it goes from getting those beans to getting the bag and putting it together, and a little bit about the coffee that you offer, the different blends that you offer?
Yes. So I right now am focusing and intend to continue focusing on Guatemalan regions, for the reason that my background is from Guatemala, my family is from Guatemala, and Central American coffee isn't something that you see broadcasted as much. Typically, at least in my experience, uh, Central American or Guatemalan coffees you typically see in blends with like Mexican, Colombian, Brazilian, as sort of like, but it's not really showcased on its own. And it's not really made a centerpiece of a lot of roasters. There's been very few that I've seen that carry Guatemalan coffee, and if they do, it's one region or two regions tops. And it's occasionally. So especially here in San Antonio, where there's a lot of Mexican American and like Chicano influence, being able to bring in a little bit more and kind of keep at the forefront the Central American and like Guatemalan coffees is like, hey, like the way that I kind of see it is Central America is seen as almost like flyover country. I don't hear a lot of people talk about going to Guatemala for vacation. It's usually the Caribbean, Mexico, or you're going into South America, into Colombia, Chile, places like that. So I just want to showcase it, right, and share that culture and that culture aspect of it, and that coffee from Guatemala can be high quality and be of a premium grade. I bring my coffees in through a nonprofit. I purchase them from a nonprofit that works with coffee cooperatives around the country. I think at this point they work with 37 cooperatives in different regions of Guatemala, Huehuetenango being one of them. And they essentially will help them get better education on how to harvest their beans, to get higher quality beans, to be able to get a better street price for them. And they also work with them on purchasing the coffee and being able to sell it at a higher price so that they can actually be able to reinvest it back into the lands that they own for future harvesting, or they'll even offer grants and loans to help them purchase equipment to process the coffee on their own. Because a lot of these cooperatives, well, actually not a lot of these cooperatives, all of the cooperatives are groups of individual family-owned farmers who have their plots of land that have either been passed down by the family and it's just become like a family business, or they're getting into it, and so they work their own land, they harvest their own coffee, they process their own coffee, and all of that plays a role in the quality of the bean at the end and what um, the market is willing to buy it for. Um, so I purchased my beans a little bit more expensive, but part of the mission for me is to be able to play a role in offering better economic opportunity to coffee growers and café cultores, as we call them, because a lot of them come from low socioeconomic backgrounds. So it's hard as I've been learning about it and learning about the process of, the harvesting and like from cherry to bean to coffee cup, to think that here in the US we're selling our coffee bags for anywhere, depending on the quality of the beans, from $7-8 all the way up to, I've seen some even in the ranges of 20 or higher. But the coffee growers aren't seeing that. If they're seeing anything, they're probably seeing $1 for 9 months of work. So that's,
Have you been
it's
able
hard to
to
justify.
visit them in these coffee farms?
Yeah. So in 2021, in December, they opened back up what they call their immersion program. So if you're a coffee bean purchaser or just someone who knows of the organization and wants to visit, they do like a week long what they call immersion trip in the region of Antigua, Guatemala. The specific area is Ciudad Vieja.
That's my
Yeah,
comment.
so
Chichicastenango. So again, Guatemala is beautiful. It's a beautiful.
yeah, Chichicastenango. I haven't. Well, I've been through, but I haven't like been able to go and visit.
So the region from where you purchase the coffee in Guatemala is what area specifically?
So I have some coffee from Huehuetenango is the most common, because that's become the more popular one because of the like more chocolatey brown sugar notes.
Okay.
And I think that is because Huehuetenango borders Mexico. So the Chiapas region, which is where you get some of the Mexican coffee from, so they share in similar profile, is what I feel. So it's very homey. It's a very homey coffee, even for me. It's like what I always expect coffee to taste like, it's like just real kind of sweet, sort of chocolatey, earthy in a sense. But I do also get coffee from the Antigua region, from Ciudad Vieja, San Miguel Escobar is the name of the town, which is right up against the slopes of Volcanagua, about 15 minutes outside of Antigua. And for the San Antonio Coffee Festival, I brought in 2 natural process coffees, one from the Antigua region. The other one is from a Mayan cooperative by the name of Ijats, which is in the Lago Atitlan region of Guatemala. It's about 2 hours from Antigua. It's a crater lake that's surrounded by 3 extinct volcanoes. It's a lot of protected land and a lot of indigenous land. So that cooperative is actually indigenous owned. Everyone that's part of that cooperative is indigenous of I don't know the exact name of, I would have to look it up. I can go back and look it up. But they're all, so their practices that they're trying to bring back are all indigenous in terms of harvesting and caring for the plants and things like that.
So I am a coffee lover. Honestly,
both
I'm
are,
addicted
yes.
to coffee.
Coffee source right here.
Yes.
Right here.
But something that I feel we always question when purchasing coffee, and maybe that's an advice that you can give us, should we be buying the grain or ya molido, like ya powdered down? Like what's the best way to purchase coffee? Or what's the difference? I guess you know what I mean? Like, is it better to buy a bag that's grain and then you do it at home, or already
like the
done?
or
Yeah.
already the grind.
So yes, there's a little bit of nuance. So like, to me, it's a yes and no. Ideally, yes, you want to get your coffee whole, because whole, the freshness will last longer. But there's other factors that can affect the freshness of it as well. And that's typically you want to keep it in an area that's dark and is airtight. So they sell, like, I don't know if you've seen on Amazon, they sell like those stainless steel, they call them gators. They're like an airtight, basically container, but it's dark because coffee reacts with light. There's an oxidation reaction that happens when light hits it for too long. So you'll oftentimes it takes a while, and it has to be like, you guys that drink a lot of coffee could probably taste the difference between a coffee that's been sitting out for a few weeks versus one that's fresher. Yeah, and especially if you're drinking it black, that's where you're really going to catch it. So whole is best just because it doesn't mess, in a sense, with the integrity of the bean. So you can keep it fresher longer. But I always say that it's best to get the coffee in whatever manner is going to make it easiest for you. Not everyone wants to go out and buy a grinder. Not everyone wants to take the time to learn it, and that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because you can always keep ground coffee fresh if you just keep it in an airtight container. But so that's where it's like a yes and no. It's like, yes, technically whole is better, but if it's the difference between you spending the money to buy a grinder and then you're like, nah, I don't feel like doing it, versus having it ground and then you can just enjoy your coffee, then you get it whatever way is going to be easiest for you.
And on your website, I saw, it seems like you have 5 different coffees that you offer that people can choose from. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the Huehuetenango coffee is the most popular. That one I am trying to make sure that I am able to keep year round. And that's the one that you guys have that has more of like the brown sugar, chocolatey kind of notes to it. It's your good traditional coffee flavor. And I've tried it in a lot of different ways. I tried it as espresso, pour over, French press, and just in a regular like coffee mate. And they're all great. I mean, even in the jarros, you know, the clay ones. I have a little clay one. So it's good. It's good anyway, right? It's gonna give you a good cup of coffee.
Like home.
Yeah. That one's different. That one hits different. Ciudad Vieja is also a wash process coffee. That one I actually ran out of and was not able to get more, but hopefully this coming harvest I am. That was the second one that I brought in when I first started roasting. So that one's a little bit kind of like Huehuetenango, but it's going to give you a little more kind of citrusy flavors because of the region. And then the 2 naturals that I have, which are the Antigua, which is from the Antigua region, and the Ijats, which is from the La Guatitlan region. Both of those are processed in what's called a natural process. So the cherry is left on the coffee bean or on the seed to dry. So it gives it that time to ferment. And at that point, you remove the cherry husk and you have the natural processed bean that's been dried. It smells, when you open the green bag, instead of it smelling kind of like grass or real sort of green, it smells like almost like like a winery, real yeasty, real like kind of like fermented. And when you roast it, it gives you a lot more of the like fruity flavors that you typically like hear about in more specialty grade coffees. It's a more laborious process. It's considered a little bit more specialty in the way that they process the bean, but it makes for a really good cup of coffee. And same with espresso, but that one is more of an acquired taste because you get less of like the chocolatey notes and more of like cherry and orange and citrus. And a lot of people are like, yeah, no, coffee's not supposed to taste that way.
So Café Cultura, so far, what do you guys have in mind about our conversations? A black coffee or coffee with milk?
So if you're on social media, follow us on Instagram and all your other major platforms. Give us a like, comment on Facebook, a rating on Apple Podcasts. Let us know what you think so we can bring other amazing guests like Katherine González from Café Cultura on board. Keep listening, and now on to the conversation.
Those are 5, right? Or no?
Yeah. So those are the 5 coffees. I want to eventually start kind of going into the realm of blending. I have some Colombian coffee that I'm thinking about blending with
Let
some
me
of the Guatemalan.
yeah, bring
But
some. Let's go.
I
um,
love
We'll
hearing
help you out with that
about the
one.
process and what goes into it because, it's just so much more than just putting that K cup or putting the coffee into the coffee machine and getting to the
Yeah.
backbone and the background of how all this comes together to this is so interesting for me because I'm from Costa Rica, so I love my Costa Rican coffee. My
oh
dream
yeah, Costa
ingredient.
Rican coffee is, and it's a lot similar to Guatemala. But I'm sure you can also share in that experience that you don't really see a lot of Costa Rican coffee, and
Don't.
if you do, it's blended usually with like some other, with a few different other types of coffees. Um, so I feel like Central America has a lot to offer in coffee, and I think it just needs someone with the love for it to kind of bring it out and say, "Hey, we have really good coffee too."
Let
Well,
me
Love
tell
us.
I was gonna ask because you said someone that has that love, right? And I see that you have that
Mhm,
passion for it.
mhm.
You're representing Guatemala con todo with you're giving it your all. But I'm sure that in doing that, or I guess I'll just ask it, as a woman-owned business, as a mom entrepreneur in the world of coffee, what challenges have you faced, if any?
That's actually a really good question because I still do. And it's imposter syndrome. And that's something I've felt my whole life. I mean, my parents are immigrants from Guatemala. I grew up in Guatemalan culture in on U.S. soil is the way that I kind of like to describe it. So my world was very black and white. Like home was,
Both places.
las cosas como se hacen y como las aprendimos en Guatemala. And the outside world is just kind of like, why, because it's a US culture, and I could probably venture to say Latin American culture is very distinct in the way that you raised and the things that, and values and things that you learn. A lot of things are similar as well. So it was always really hard growing up, when your friends are like, come over to the house. And it's like, yeah, my mom said no. And it's like, you're 18 and it's like, oh, you want to go out? It's like, yeah, my mom said no. And it's like, but you're 18. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but my mom said no.
No.
Especially if you're living at home, you know what I mean?
Tenga cafecito,
Uh,
¿no?
Right?
yeah, exactly. You can come over to my house though. So I've always felt a lot of imposter syndrome because I'm first gen. My sister and I are first gen. We're first gen to graduate high school. We were first generation to graduate college. Um, really first generation to enter into non blue collar jobs in a sense, like office jobs. Um, so navigating the world is a first in a lot of different things. And so going on this venture and kind of starting a business was really scary. And it felt like, and still often feels like, I don't belong in it. And I feel like I have to try 2 times harder to put myself out there. And a lot of times I stop myself, and it takes someone else seeing me and just saying, no, you should really go for it. I almost didn't go to the San Antonio Coffee Festival because I was like, nah, it's too late to apply. I'm not going to do it. Right. Um,
No.
No, I'm
and
really
then once I know,
Hey,
right?
that's how I
that's
got my coffee.
that's why I met Catherine at the San Antonio Festival. That was a
Yeah.
great festival. But let me tell, I'm going to be honest with you because I was talking to a lot of different coffee roasters, and you really stood out to me. Your energy, I feel that of everybody I met that day, your energy was the most like exciting and inviting, and it's like I was drawn to your tent there and your coffee. It just was like welcoming, like I was coming to see like my tia or somebody, and having some coffee.
Yeah.
I'm really glad.
I got that feedback a lot, and that solidifies for me, right, that I'm in the right place and I'm in the right space, and I should be in it, but imposter syndrome is rough, and I go through it a lot, and um I would say that's probably been the biggest challenge is myself, and just kind of feeling like I am equally as deserving of being in this space as anybody else. Even if I don't know it all, even if I'm young, even if I'm still learning a lot of stuff, like everyone starts somewhere, and this is just where I'm starting, you know. And I haven't really met a whole lot of other Latina roasters. If I'm being completely honest, I've met some. I did meet at the San Antonio Coffee Festival a few other Latin American roasters, and that was exciting. That was really exciting. So um, it's navigating a world of firsts in a lot of things.
And I know you said you opened up this at the beginning of the year, your coffee truck. Do you have a brick and mortar, or is there plans to open a store, a storefront?
I I do want to open a brick and mortar. The trailer was kind of my initial way into it, because it allows me to be mobile. It's a little bit less overhead. But the goal would be to open a brick and mortar somewhere in the city, and it can be a space that's kind of like a community oriented space. Even when I was in college and I would think about like, oh, you know, it'd be really cool to have a coffee shop. I went to UTSA. And at least when I was there, there was nothing that was ever open late. And so I was like, how cool would it be to have like a little coffee shop that's outside of the campus, and has like all of the text, like at least maybe not all of the textbooks, but some of the textbooks, right? That you can check out for a couple of hours. Cause you know, the struggle of buying brand new textbooks and you have to have this new version and stuff, it can be really difficult. Especially if you're not, you know, if you're paying your way through college. So I always thought about that in college. I don't know that I would open it near UTSA, or I haven't really thought about where I would want to open it. I just know that I want it to be like a community space that has things that people can
pitch them the idea. You never
Yeah.
know.
yeah, right. But just something where people can come and sit down and have some coffee, talk, relax a little bit. Like that to me is like the ideal. That would be the best coffee shop.
And where do you go? Like, I know I met you at the San Antonio Festival, but I think I saw that you go to festivals. Like, there was one in the Hill Country that you went to. Do you travel around often and to these festivals so that people can get to know you and your coffee?
I want to. I'm so new that I'm kind of finding my footing in it. But I do want to do events around the city. I've actually got the Viva Science Essay Festival coming up on April the 1st at the Witty. So I'm really excited about that one. And then on April the 15th, I'll be doing a market over by the Blue Star complex with St. Philip's Catholic Church. They reached out to me. So I do want to venture out and move around and do more event type stuff with the trailer.
So for purchasing your coffee, where would somebody go? Or
So they can
do you sell individually, wholesaling, or
I do both. So I do have a
Nice.
couple of coffee shops that purchase wholesale coffee from me. You can also purchase the coffee on the website, which is cafecultura210.com. And there I sell the individual retail bags, but you can always reach out via Instagram or Facebook for wholesale requests, or you can also call or text. So I'm working on a new website that has that wholesale option where they can reach out directly if they're interested in wholesale. Or even if not necessarily wholesale, but if you want like a 5 pound bag, because you know, I've had some people ask
You drink
if I
a lot?
would sell a 5 pound bag. Yeah, I guess it depends on how quickly. I mean, I could probably get through a 5 pound bag in a week by myself. But yeah, so I'll hopefully be launching that stuff in April.
and then what is your your bestseller? You have you noticed which one's your bestseller? Or
It's the Huehuetenango. It really is.
okay,
So
that's a good one.
We got the good one.
We got the
This one.
good one.
yeah, and it's my flagship. So that's the one I started with,
Oh,
and I
that's your
just started
baby.
roasting it.
Aw.
Yeah, so it's my baby. And when I bought it, the organization that I got the coffee from, they have in Huehuetenango, one of the cooperatives is all female. So the first year I bought like the last sack of coffee that they had available, and I had that one coffee sack. it took me, took me like a year to get all the way through, like as far as roasting and selling it. So I mean, this year I'm looking at almost doubling. Actually, not even. I'm looking at purchasing a good chunk of it. I pretty much almost all of the lot that's coming from that all female cooperative. So I'm excited.
Congratulations! Yeah.
Thank you.
Something I should have asked before, but is there a meaning behind
Oh, that's right. The name.
Huehuetenango?
So yeah, so Huehuetenango is the region. And the significance behind it, when I was trying to figure out like how I was going to be naming my coffees, I was going back and forth with a lot of different things. I had gotten some suggestions from like friends and family to do to keep it, again, still tied back to the cultural. Someone had said, well, what if you call them like some of the different volcanoes? And I was like, yeah, but not all of the regions are volcanic. So it'd be hard, if it's a non-volcanic region, what do I name it? So what I ended up deciding on was sticking to calling them based on their region, or in the case of the Ijats coffee. Well, Ijats I named La Guatitlan. And the reason being is I want everything to always point back to the country that it's coming from. And the beauty that can be found in a lot of these different regions. So if someone gets it and they're like, what's La Guatitlan? And you Google La Guatitlan, and you're going to get the region of La Guatitlan, Guatemala. And you'll see, the volcanoes that are there, the lake, the vast different little towns that exist all around it. And it, I mean, the scenery and the beauty of the country. So as far as naming at this point, they're always going to be named after either city, town, or region that they're from.
I wanted to go back a little bit. I know you said there wasn't many people in this industry for you to be mentored by. And I actually, a few years ago, because I write a lot about coffee too, I've written a couple of articles about coffee. But I wanted to ask, do you feel like you're a leader in this industry now? Or do you feel like, that, how do I say?
Are you a leader?
Are you a leader? And do you feel like you're for the field, for others to look up to you if they want to do this business or open up a coffee shop one day?
I hope I am. That's definitely the goal. I want to be not necessarily seen as like the best of the best. I want to be the best at what I do, right? Because that's just in my nature. It's who I am. And because I enjoy it. But I do hope that I can, or I am seen as a leader, and someone can look at me and say, wow, she's doing it, I can do it too. I've met a few from the festival and even after the fact that are also Central American. And they'll say, yeah, we were really drawn to we went to the coffee festival and we were really drawn to your logo because you see it. And if you're from Central America, you know what it is, right? Yeah. And she's like, so the logo is the Quetzal, which is a national bird for Guatemala. Yeah. And then it's got the sort of like mountainous volcano in the background, and then the cup of coffee. So a lot of people were like, yeah, we saw it, and we immediately were like, that has to be like Central American, or at least the owner, right, is Central American or Guatemalan. So I've had a lot of people say like, yeah, I don't meet a lot of, or people that are Central American. I was like, yeah, me either. I know we're here. We don't know where.
So, yeah, a lot of people, we're still educating our communities, right? That there's more to Latin America, and there's Central America, there's the Caribbean, there's South America. So de a poquito, and we want to thank you for doing that through coffee, right?
Yeah.
But where do you see Café Cultura moving forward? Like, let's say in the next 5 years, where are you headed?
Ooh,
HEB.
Right. Central Market. If HEB is listening, I would love to. I would love to be an HEB.
Love
Yeah, without
No people.
without losing who I am, right?
Mhm.
I for sure I want to have a brick and mortar. I've talked about the trailer, keeping the trailer and using it for events or maybe posting it up somewhere else in the city. Uh, I especially want to be able to focus on the roasting. I want to get certifications. I want to be able to go to the Specialty Coffee Association events and heck, even compete. There's competitions for it, and I would love to. I would love to do that. There's uh it's the representation of the Latinas and then also representation of minority roasters. And also San Antonio, that San Antonio has a really good coffee scene.
That's right.
I need
That's
to
right.
go.
I don't know if we
Next year I'm
mentioned.
going. I haven't gone.
Yeah,
I
it's
make sure
growing
you're
for
in San
sure.
Antonio. I don't know if we mentioned that, but you're based out of San Antonio.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas.
And any advice to Latinas out there that are wanting to be part of this coffee family? What advice would you have for them in starting their business?
To do it. Um, Latin American coffee comes from our own countries. And who better to be able to take over the final step of it, which is the roasting, than ourselves. The coffee industry as a whole, even in coffee production, needs a lot more representation from females and Latinas. And I think if anybody deserves to be in the space, it's us. And we should feel confident in doing that. We all start somewhere. Um, and it's just learning, a veces a porrazos, like you're gonna get hit, you're gonna fall, you might hear some stuff, you might feel some stuff, you might be told some stuff, it could be anything. But then at the same time, you're gonna have the people around you that are there, that are supporting you. We have a really unique, I wouldn't say necessarily unique, but it's very inherent in our Latin American cultures that like family sticks together, right? And I've gotten a ton of support. It takes a village, um, from my in-laws, from my parents. My dad, when I told him I wanted to get into this, was super excited. And he'll sit and tell us stories about how when he was little and vivía en Guatemala, él le ayudaba a su abuelo. He helped manage a small little farm that my great grandpa had. And he's like, and I remember I would go around and I had these big sticks and I would hit the tree, so that the ripe cherries would fall off. But then you have to go in and so it's really cool to see it kind of come full circle. And I get to do it now from the other side because obviously I'm not in Guatemala. Um, but I get to do it from the other side of it, from the production side, but that final step, the roasting step. So just do it despite the imposter syndrome. It's valid. Your feelings are valid, and if you're scared, but it's pushing through it and really just going for it.
Well, we want to thank you for being on the show with us and going down this coffee journey and explaining the process from the beans and how you harvest them to, how it's all put together to this wonderful cup of, heaven right here that we have. And then again, if for anybody that's interested in finding you, they can go to your website at www.cafecultura2.0.com. Is that right?
Café Cultura 210, so 210. Like
210.
the San Antonio area code.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and I'm also on Instagram, and TikTok and Facebook at Café Cultura 210, is my handle on all of them. So I'm always happy to sit and talk all day long about coffee. So if anyone ever has questions or just wants to learn a little bit more,
A coffee club then.
Okay, so again, before we leave, Catherine, we want to ask you a question. You prefer cafecito negro, so black coffee, or café con leche, which is milk with your coffee? Which one's better?
That's an important question.
Yes, very important.
it It depends. Me gusta el café negro. I preference,
Black coffee. Okay.
yes, would be black. But when I go see my parents, for example, they do have their percolator coffee and stuff. But for the sake of nostalgia, I'll do instant coffee. I am, you know,
That's a bad
Wow,
word.
no me digas. Oh my gosh.
instant coffee, yes. But it's
a bad
more
word.
of a nostalgia for me, right? But that one I definitely can't do black. That one has to be with cream and sugar.
Oh, well, like,
But I enjoy it always.
cafecito conversations with you were amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And I don't know, do you do cheers with coffee?
Oh,
But we
I
are
love
cheers.
cheers.
Salud.
And again,
Coffee.
Café Cultura 210, a combination of Guatemala and San Antonio. So make sure to follow. Thank you again so much.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you guys reaching out and thanking me for this. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Refill.
Bye. Oh, no, refill. So thank you again for joining us. We're here at Kismet Boutique in the East End, a Latina-owned business. They have so many amazing things you can shop for. I just want to get up and start shopping right now, but I can't.
Oh, we will.
But I wanted to thank you for joining us. And what did you think about the show? I really enjoyed the backstory of how she gets her coffee beans made and to the bag. You know, here's the bag of the coffee that
Café Cultura.
Café Cultura 210, based in San Antonio, Texas. But I think it was a great interview. What do you think, Carolina?
Well, the best part for me was drinking the coffee.
Right.
It tastes amazing, and again, it has flavors: chocolate, brown sugar, and spice. And honestly, the best part for me was the passion. Catherine has a huge passion for her culture, her community, and well-rounded in the world of coffee. So just make sure to check out our interview with her. Make sure to follow her, purchase coffee if you're a coffee drinker, give her some love. And again, just make sure to follow us as well on any of your social media platforms, the Latina Leadership Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast interview as much as we did, and stay tuned for many more.
Thank you.
What did you think of the conversation? If you enjoyed what you heard, let us know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for listening to the Latina Leadership Podcast, and we will see you next time.